It was late at night when I finally sat down. The house was tidy, the dishes were done, Mira was asleep, yet I still felt tired. I tried to remember everything I had done that day. Nothing felt especially demanding, yet my body felt as if it had traveled much farther than it should have. I opened my journal, hoping to find a reason that made sense. The more I searched through the day, the less certain I felt about what was draining me. How could someone feel this exhausted when they had barely lifted anything all day? The question stayed with me as I sat there in the quiet. My name is Clara. And that was when I started to wonder if the thing growing tired wasn't my body at all, but the part of my mind that never seemed to stop working. The morning begins like any other day. While preparing breakfast, my mind quietly drifts toward what I should cook for dinner later. As the eggs cook, I mentally count what is left in the refrigerator. I wonder whether it will last through the week or if shopping needs to happen sooner. While Mira eats her breakfast, I check a notification about the electricity bill. A moment later, I remember the school payment due next month. After Armin leaves for work, I open our family budgeting app. It takes only a moment, yet my thoughts immediately branch into many other things. Rice prices have gone up. The gas cylinder is nearly empty, and Mira's shoes are starting to feel too small. None of these things feels like a major problem. There's simply many small decisions, one after another. The decisions never really stop arriving, and I begin to feel as though something unseen is quietly draining my energy. A few days later, I started noticing a pattern. The exhaustion kept showing up, even on days that felt completely ordinary. I tried going to bed earlier than usual. Even so, I still woke up feeling tired. I drank more water, took morning walks, and tried cutting back on housework. I kept making small changes to my routine, yet the same heaviness remained. It never seemed very far away. One afternoon, I sat down with a cup of tea. For the first time that day, I wasn't doing anything at all. My mind stayed busy. Bills, groceries, savings, and Mira's needs kept moving through my thoughts. That was when I started to realize something. Maybe I had never truly been resting at all. I started counting how many decisions I made in a single day. The number was much higher than I expected. What should we have for breakfast? What should I prepare for lunch? When should I shop? And which bill should be paid first? Then I noticed something I had never really considered. Even the smallest decisions seemed to require a little energy. I had always assumed that exhaustion needed to be visible, something physical, something that left you sweating. But my mind had been working long before anything else began. It seemed to stay active from the moment I opened my eyes. Even when I was sitting still, my thoughts kept moving ahead. There always seemed to be another plan forming somewhere in the background. The realization left me uneasy. What bothered me most was that I had no idea how to switch it off. From the outside, our life seemed completely normal. Nothing about our days suggested how much was happening beneath the surface. Armin went to work each morning, and Mira headed off to school. I moved through my usual routines just as I always did. When a neighbor greeted me, I smiled and greeted them back. It looked like an ordinary moment to everyone around me. No one could see what was filling my mind at that time. The thoughts stayed hidden behind the parts of life everyone could easily notice. The list of things I needed to remember kept growing longer. Every item felt important enough that I couldn't ignore it. I worried about forgetting something important. I worried about making the wrong decision when too many choices depended on me. The more I tried to keep everything under control, the more exhausted I became. The effort itself seemed to add weight to each passing day. One afternoon, Mira sat quietly beside me while I looked at my phone. It felt like an ordinary moment in the middle of a normal day. I was comparing food prices, checking promotions, and doing small calculations in my head. My attention stayed on numbers that needed to fit together. Then I felt a gentle tug on my sleeve. It was small, but enough to pull my attention away from the screen. "Mom," she said softly. Her voice felt quiet against the thoughts already filling my mind. I turned toward her and asked what she needed. For a moment, my focus shifted away from budgets and calculations. Mira smiled and asked if I was thinking about money again. She spoke as if it were a familiar part of the day. I paused after hearing her words. The way she said it sounded so natural, as though she had seen that scene many times before. That night, I kept thinking about what Mira had said earlier. Her quiet words stayed with me long after the house had gone silent. I started looking at myself from a distance, almost like I was watching someone else. For the first time, I paid attention to what filled my days. I realized I wasn't only managing money, I was also carrying the responsibility of remembering everything. I was the one remembering bills, planning meals, watching expenses, and finding solutions when something changed. Those tasks followed me quietly through every day. For a long time, I treated all of it as something normal. I never stopped to question how much space it occupied in my mind. I had never given that weight a name before. It was simply part of my routine, so familiar that I barely noticed it. Then I finally understood what had been exhausting me. It wasn't the housework itself, but the countless small decisions I carried alone every day. A few nights later, I finally brought it up with Armand. We sat together in the quiet after the day had ended. "I'm tired," I said quietly. The words felt simple, but they had been sitting with me for a while. Armand looked concerned right away. His attention shifted fully toward me. "Are you sick?" he asked. I shook my head and told him it wasn't physical exhaustion. I started explaining the things that never stopped moving through my mind. Bills, groceries, savings goals, and household needs all seemed to overlap. Armand listened without interrupting. For a long moment, the room stayed quiet except for my voice. Then he quietly said, "I didn't realize you were carrying all of that on your own." I sat with his words for a moment. The following week, we decided to make a few small changes. Nothing major had shifted, but it felt different to approach things together. We put together a weekly meal schedule. Seeing the meals written down made the week feel a little more organized in my mind. Some bills were set to happen automatically. There were fewer things I needed to remember at the right moment. Armand took responsibility for a few regular payments. For the first time in a while, those reminders no longer stayed entirely with me. I also started asking myself a simple question. Did this decision really need to be made right now? It turned out that many things could be scheduled, many things could be simplified, and some things could be shared. I realized I did not have to carry every responsibility by myself. The exhaustion didn't disappear overnight, but now I understand it a little better than before. I no longer blame myself whenever I feel tired. The feeling doesn't seem as confusing as it once did. Keeping a family running takes more than visible tasks. The mental effort behind it is real, even when no one can see it. If this story feels familiar, I'm glad you found Clara's family journal. This has been a place where I share these everyday experiences, and now I'm curious about your experience. Which financial decision keeps returning to your mind every week?